Hi, James here again from the 11 Plus Tutors. Today I feel that it's that time of year again where I need to make this video. I've done it once before. Sometimes we get parents panicking, thinking we should have covered everything up to E equals MC squared by now. That isn't the case actually. I'm going to explain the 11 Plus flight path here so you're a bit clearer about the philosophy behind this. The philosophy behind my tuition, and those that don't come to my tuition might get something from this video. The first thing I think we need to think about is what is the objective of the 11 Plus? It's not actually about broad coverage. It's not about that. Okay, so we can put that to one side. It's actually about, to use some educational language, greater depth or mastery. That's very much what this is about. So it's not the breadth of curriculum. It's maybe, year 5, I would argue some elements of year 6 in the CSSE exam, but it's more about a greater depth understanding. So because of that, my tuition has been tuned in a certain way. Let me explain. The majority of the time that children spend with me is spent building basic foundations, okay? The majority of the time. For that, we might include, if it's writing, just sentence writing. We do a lot of sentence gym work at my tuition and bringing that stuff together. And we keep going over the same thing again and again and again. And that is for good reason. I'm talking about years of experience here. It's for good reason. For maths, we start on a series called Peter Robson Maths, which I find is an excellent primer. It's definitely not everything, but it's a good primer, especially Red Book 1. It gets to the parts that primary schools don't necessarily get to. What we find with primary schools is generally, and I'm not criticising them because they've got a kind of more of a generic job to do, but they try and go from topic to topic and maybe don't spend as much time in as greater depth as we would like. And sometimes we will go further ahead in the curriculum of primary schools do at a certain point in the year, so we don't really follow what they do. But basics with number operations, basic with just number, understanding how numbers work, factors, multiples. When you get into fractions, decimals, a lot of time spent on decimal operations, just real fundamentals, so they know these things inside out. And that's the key thing. And then only when we get to about Easter, we do some of this between Christmas and Easter. Between Christmas and Easter, we spend time topic teaching with year 5. Not the younger ones. The younger ones, I don't mind if they spend a long time on the same thing, the younger ones. I'll say that again. I don't mind if the younger ones spend a long time working through maybe their Red Book 1, Peter Robson. As long as they're going back, if they don't understand something, they redo it. That's the important thing, that we don't move on too quickly, that they thoroughly understand something. With year 5, between Christmas and Easter, we do topic teaching with the whole group, okay? And that's really when I feel the kids are ready for it. There's no point doing this class teaching with kids where they're all at different points and they don't understand what I'm talking about. They need a basic skill set first before we can do this. And in this phase, we pretty much cover all of the main topics. There aren't as many as you think, okay? It's not a very, very broad curriculum, but there are things in there that are challenging and tricky for kids, and maybe things that they don't do in enough time, or they don't spend enough time on at school. And then from Easter to the summer, we sprinkle in, we still do topic teaching, but we sprinkle in some practice papers. We started doing that a little bit already with a couple of English papers we've been doing in class. But these are not full-on 11 Plus papers. These are practice, but the entry-level 11 Plus papers. They're the same, similar standard, but we're not going full pelt yet. During the summertime, just leading up to the summer holidays and through the summer holidays, we're doing our past papers, and also I run a series of mock exams that are very well subscribed during the summer. We get about 100 kids plus per session, where we're doing our custom written mock exam papers. The kids get to sit in the exam hall, and believe you me, they perform very differently in the exam hall to the way they behave in class, okay? It's a very different experience to them. They're very I've said this before in previous videos, they're very sensitive to context. So if it's a different surrounding, they can perform differently. But that's golden that time. That's what I call a consolidation phase, where things are being brought together. All of this stuff gets brought together under time pressure. But the 11 plus preparation is not just about doing practice papers or past papers. Some people seem to think it is. It's not. Okay. If you start doing this stuff, I've heard of people doing this kind of stuff in January, February. You know, all you're going to do is depress your child. Okay, they're not going to do that well. They're in some ways psychologically not ready for this kind of thing at that point. And again, I speak from many years of experience. It's only at this point that it becomes a much more useful tool. That's why my mock exams run from July, August, the beginning of September, very late on. That's when they're the most important tool. But this is not just about papers. This is about, I think, the foundations are the most important thing, because you can't get to a mastery level. And that's what the 11 plus, the philosophy behind the paper is intelligence over coverage. Remember, they say, and we can take what they say with a pinch of salt, they say that any bright kid could walk into the exam having done a couple of past papers and do well. Well, we know that's not strictly true. But I think what they're also saying here is that it's not about getting up to do quadratic equations or simultaneous equations. It's not necessarily about that. What it's about is understanding a narrower curriculum, and this is what the Singapore maths philosophy is all about, that British schools have tried to bring in. That it's about covering fewer things, but in greater depth. And to get there, we need to have really solid foundations before we start accelerating towards the end. All the time this is going on, of course, the kids are doing homework for me. They're working methodically through a set of books. From about Christmas, they also do some practice paper type things like Bond and so on. You've got to remember that these series like Bond and CGP, they are generic papers, okay? They're not, in some cases, are aimed at specific exams, but they're not strictly the same as some of these variants that you get, but they're still worth doing. And I ask kids to work on these at home. You know, we don't spend time in class on them, but at home. I hope you found that useful and interesting. This is what I found works, okay? This works. This is why I do it this way. Some parents get frustrated. That's up to them, okay? They may find another provider where they're willing to do mock papers in January, February and go full pelt. That's up to them. I will always stick to this, okay? No matter what, I will stick to this because I know it works. I hope you found it interesting and useful. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.